Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It's a huge live stream, and today we're talking about Fuel by Freedom, and we got our guest Jonathan Maynard. And Jonathan and I have been friends for a minute since 2000, since literally the last live event before the world collapsed and closed down. His response a bit in Arizona.
Yeah, it's been
Good.
a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I'm excited to catch up with you for a lot of reasons. When people start jumping in live, I'll segue and back off and kind of do a proper introduction. But we're waiting for people to come on live. I know you just moved from Fredericksburg area, Virginia, down to Arkansas, but I don't know where. I think it's Bug Tussle, right?
Yeah, but I'm halfway between Wiener and Goobertown or something like that. No, no, I'm actually in north central, northwest Arkansas, up in the mountains. Got some acreage up here, and just had made that decision a while back, and for many reasons. First of all, wanting just to get away, get off of the hamster wheel, get out of the rat race of kind of the daily thing. I've got an amazing team that runs, my service company day to day. So I'm able to kind of unplug from that and, just give them strategic leadership, work on other kind of fun things, but really just enjoy my family, just spending time with them. And my wife's parents are aging. So, getting my wife back in there, and able to spend, some years with their parents. I think that's super important. I think we miss that a lot of times.
Yeah,
those sorts of things.
I think it's really important that culturally, it's not as prominent in the U.S. as it is, in Latin America or especially in the, the Far East. Like it's all about family, multi-generational. I think that's fantastic. Yeah. And well, we won't go down that rabbit hole. I won't. I was going to start talking about getting older, but I'm reminded of it almost every day. I'm like, oh, look, that guy in the mirror doesn't look a lot like me, but apparently we're closely related. How's the move and getting settled in? How long has it been since you moved?
3 weeks. So
hold on. Since before that, your last move before moving this time.
Oh,
you've been in the same house.
We'd only been in the same house since 2019. So we were there for 5 years, and we were in the previous house for like 12 years or so, 12 or 15 years. So, but we've been in Virginia for nearly 20 years.
Okay. So did you find out when you moved across the country or, multi-states over, do you love moving, or did you like jettison and get rid of a bunch of stuff? You go essential?
A lot of downsizing. Yeah. Yeah. Plus, I mean, our home in Virginia was quite large. I mean, it was big, and then this one is less big. It's still big by a lot of standards, but it's less big. And so, because our kids, they're aging, they're moving out. So our son turned 21. He's out. Our daughter's 18. She's out, and so our 16-year-old son's the only one left. So you don't need all those bedrooms and all those rooms that you can go and escape to and whatnot. It's you just got a smaller family, and it's okay.
So you tell all your kids, you're like, hey, we're only taking our favorite child. We can only take one.
Yeah. So we got room for one. So we're going to take this one.
Yeah.
No. It wasn't that bad.
Okay. And you said your north central, is that classic Ozark Mountains? The Ozarks?
Yep. Right in the Ozarks.
Okay. That's really cool. Do you have hand cranked powered internet?
No, actually, it's funny. I have fiber internet, gig fiber internet. We're in the mountains. So
wow,
it's awesome.
Yeah. That's really cool. All right. So if we were doing an interview, I would ask you stuff like this. I would go, hey, Jonathan, I've known you for about 5 years, and I've seen you go through the I don't want to say standard challenges with growing a business, but you've seen you grow and take on more and get, like bam, bam, things go up and down. And just in the past year and a half or so, looks like with Red Door Pro Wash, that's your primary business, power washing business back in Virginia, you really got your leadership locked in and the vision and strategy locked in so that it has become a self-managing business. What were like some of the keys? Because there's a lot of freaking chaos that happens on the way to getting from 0 to 1 million, multiple millions, and then getting the business to run on its own.
Honestly, it comes down to the team. It comes down to having the right people that you trust and having the systems and processes in place that they can follow, so that they're able to lead from clarity. And that's probably the biggest reason. Most teams fail to rally, and the reason is because there's no vision, and there's not a vision that they're going to die for. So, most teams underperform not from a lack of skill, but from a lack of clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And vision isn't just a poster on a wall. It's not just a sentence. It's a shared belief in where we're going, why it matters, and what success feels like. And that having that kind of clarity and that kind of vision is what has been the game changer. And then you have the team that can rally around that.
Yeah. So clarity and vision. Gosh, I think it's in Proverbs or something. It's wild to me. I'm a Bible guy, but I don't preach a lot. But like how much of business just ties back to the scripture. There's a great verse that says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish."
Yeah.
And one translation of the word perish means wander aimlessly. And I see that in a lot of people's companies and their teams because there's not clear vision. A lot of times the owner has one, but it's just up in their head and they don't communicate it clearly, or they just kind of stumbled into business and haven't clarified their vision yet.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, well, I'll ask you your experience with I know you're going to cover when you teach at the huge convention, you're going to talk about like the difference between A players and B players and how that affects your company.
Yeah. It's funny. I kept hiring people who needed managing. And then one day a mentor told me, he said, A players create time and B players cost time. And that really hit me. And I built a team of firefighters, not fireproofers. And then that day I decided I had to upgrade my standards because most companies hire for availability, not alignment. So they hire warm bodies.
Yeah.
And A players aren't just skilled, they're self-managed, they're emotionally intelligent, and they're results driven. So those are the things that really set an A player apart from the B player. But here's a twist. They don't join average cultures. They're attracted to clarity, challenge, and growth. So if you don't have those sorts of things, you might be able to hire an A player, but you're not going to be able to retain them because they're not going to stick around if you have a cancerous or a toxic work environment. And that was a hard reality that I had to face, was that our culture stunk years ago and it wasn't good. It was what I see in a lot of home service businesses. It was like just the dynamic just wasn't there with the team. And when you're hiring warm bodies, and you get into a mindset of I can only pay this much money. That's all I can afford. I can't afford an A player. When you have that mindset, and trust me, it took me so many times to even attempt to get this right, but they don't cost you money. They make you money because they're self-managed, emotionally intelligent, results driven.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to say, this isn't a cost, this is going to be an investment. And then the question that you need to present to yourself is, what do I need to sacrifice in the short term to get that long-term benefit? Because you might have to decrease your own salary or your own distributions or something for a short term, knowing that you're going to hire this A player to join your company.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna 1 sec. I'm gonna call back to an event we were both at 2 years ago. But for those of you that are jumping on live, two things. One, please say hi in the comments. Let us know who's here and where you're joining from. Is really thankful that you took time to jump in. This has already gotten real insightful. I'm taking more notes than I had questions to ask. The second thing is we'll give away a couple of tickets to the huge convention a little bit later in the show, maybe 15, 20 minutes. So if you would like to win a ticket to the huge convention, just share this live feed in a group or two. Go spam it all over the internet. I don't care. I'm just kidding.
Nope.
Probably share it in a group that you are familiar with, that you already, whatever, that you frequent.
That you frequent, they know you, and it's not some yard sale group or some weird neighborhood group or
don't put in the
industry groups.
Yeah, and here's the actual link if you want to copy and paste it and share it into another live feed. I don't know how that works. It's technology stuff. So, yeah. All right. So, Jonathan, you were talking about A players versus B players, and A players don't cost money; they make money. but something I had not heard before, or I've not heard it put this way, is you said A players create time, and your B
Yeah.
players cost you time
Yes.
or create chaos. You remember we had a VIP dinner at the Standard, not last year, but the year before.
Mhm.
And Jonathan Potoshnik, guy that started not Service Titan,
Monster.
Service Monster. That's a different one. It's another service something. It's a CRM.
Yes.
It was primary. He started in the landscaping industry. He had like a 10 or $12 million landscape company, and then he started the service CRM.
Autopilot.
Yeah,
It's one of those.
Service Autopilot. I think that's right.
I think that might be the one. Yeah.
Yeah, and he exited that very like 8-figure exit, really retirement, real exit money. But anyway, when he was talking about, we were talking about how you scale a business, what are the keys, and there were 3 guys on stage that are all grown. They're 20 million, 50 million, $80 million businesses or managed stuff that size. And Jonathan was real low key, but he got animated and he said, look, you're talking about all these, like marketing and thing. And he goes, it's all about your people. You have to have good people and you have to pay them. And do you recall that? He talked about, he had a guy that he was paying almost $250,000 a year for, I don't know if he was the chief marketing officer or something, but a key role, wasn't cutting it, fired him, hired a guy that they were paying almost $400,000 a year. And when he was said that, like, I felt visceral pain. I was like, wow. And he's like, dude doubled our company in a year. Like, he was cheap. They went, he added like 8 million in revenue. It was like, oh, well, that $400,000 was well spent.
Yeah.
And you said it, the difference between an A player and a B player practically is they make you money and they make you time. But how do you find them? How do you keep them?
Yeah, well, finding them that's always the tricky part, and that's actually one of the things I'm going to teach on in my class at the Huge is like how do you attract these guys and girls, and then the question is how do you retain them, because finding them is actually not that difficult. And there's several different strategies. I mean, anywhere between, writing the correct post and putting them out there on job boards, your network, and finding the people, like searching somebody out. So for example, if you did need a marketing person in your local area, it's like, who is the best marketing person? Who can I go to steal a CMO from one, a company, that's similar to mine? Now, power washing company, most of us don't have CMOs. I know I don't. But if you're thinking about technicians, well, what other businesses are out there that have high quality people? So if you have a home and you have an HVAC technician come over and they've got a helper that's like really sharp and whatnot, just give them your card. Say, hey, if you're ever looking for a change of industry, let me know. You're probably not going to get the HVAC tech because it's just, that's way too much of a lateral move that doesn't make sense for them. But if you're out at Panera Bread, Chick-fil-A, I have found so many great employees at Chick-fil-A. Hey, if you're ever looking for a change, here's my card. And our ops manager does that. Our GM does that. Everybody does that. Trying to recruit the best people. So your networks are going to be huge. So there's different ways that you can go after them, but that's not the hard part. The hard part is retaining them.
Yeah.
And how you do that is by having a vision with clarity and having a story, having something that they can buy into, and then keeping your promises, because it's easy to talk a big game, but if you can't back that up, or you don't set reasonable expectations or mile markers or things like that, then they're going to fade away, because they're used to challenges. They're used to a very consistent and fast work environment. They're used to being able to be promoted whenever they do show that they've got what it takes. So you want to even show them an ascension ladder, even if it's just you and a helper right now.
Mm-hmm.
You can still show an ascension ladder. and saying, okay, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get, a couple more techs, and then you're going to be the lead tech over these techs, and then we're going to get some more techs, and you could be the operations manager. And then after that, if you want to go into sales, there's an opportunity for that. So you kind of want to paint the picture of what the future looks like for them at your company. And that's how you can kind of get them to stay around. But they're not going to stick if the culture stinks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know, like, we've all experienced those challenges. Like, how long have you had Red Door? It's like 7 years?
Almost 10.
Almost 10. Okay. Hey, good job. Way to go. The building your culture, like, here's a struggle that I had, and a lot of guys in service industry, like home services, window cleaning, power washing, things like that. You go, well, what's the purpose? What's how am I giving people on my team purpose and meaning? Because we go, like, I'm just cleaning windows. We're not saving lives. We're not, like, we're not trying to change the world, or are we? What did you do with your culture to help people see purpose, to give them the clear vision? It's more than just like, you can go from 40,000 to 50,000, 60,000 a year.
Yeah. For us, it's about being part of the community, and what we do and how we explain it to our technicians, to our sales staff, to anybody, is we are giving people the gift of time back, because they don't have to be the ones out there taking care of their home maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So we are giving them time with their family, and in return, they're paying us money that allows us to spend time with our families. So it's a cooperative effort there, and we're also, we paint the picture that we make the place clean. Who wants to be in a dingy city? So more than us just cleaning it, we're also promoting this citywide. We're making the awareness that, hey, your business needs to get cleaned, your sidewalks need to get cleaned, your windows need to be cleaned, because when they're clean, you actually get more customers, they feel more comfortable. So we're educating people, and we're actually creating a cleaner city because of that.
Yeah. Can you please send a crew to downtown Portland, Oregon, please?
Oh Lord, no.
It's such a beautiful city, but they need their pride back.
Justin Noggle can handle that for me.
Okay, good.
I'll send him a message.
Justin, get busy. You're gonna need a lot of trucks.
Yeah.
Now, so with that, like, how did you go through the process of clarifying your own vision so you could communicate it clearly with a team?
It's about knowing your why and what you want. And that's the hardest part, because, when I started this company, I wasn't sure what I wanted. I started 9 years ago. I was working a full-time job. And I, took a couple dollars and, bought a power washer and, started doing the thing like most people do. And so I didn't have a vision. And going back to what you're saying earlier, yeah, I was wandering for a long time. And then it might have been Josh Latimer, could have been Brandon Vaughn, somebody back in the day. They're like, oh, you have to have a vision and a vision statement. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So, back then you Google, hey, what's a nice, vision statement? And now you just chat GPT it. I don't suggest that. And I'll talk about that in my class about why you don't do that.
Yeah.
But you need to ask the why. So when I'm coaching somebody and they tell me that they want a 7-figure business, I go, why? Well, I want the money. Well, why do you want the money? And you start peeling back the layers of the onion, and then you find out, oh, it's because I want my kids to have a good life because I didn't, or I want my wife to not have to work because I want her to spend time with my children, or I want to be able to vacation anytime I want. You need to get down to the core of your why, and then once you do that, then you could say, okay, now I've got a purpose. Like, I've got the reason for what I'm doing. And then when you create the vision, it's like, how can I get that vision? How can I go get that? And when you create your vision, the most important thing to do is create a vision, like Tommy Mello says, a vision large enough that your whole team can fit in it.
Yeah.
And because if you just go to your team and say, hey guys, I really want to hit the goals this quarter because I'm really looking forward to that new Tahoe or whatever the thing is, your team's going to be like, okay, good, man, good luck. But if you go to them and say, hey, when we hit this goal, then this is how it's going to affect all of us, and you can paint that vision of what the future looks like for everybody, then you're going to get the buy-in.
Yeah. So with your team like that, with the, you have goals and benchmarks, like maybe it's, this month our revenue needs to hit 180,000 or whatever the number is. How do you break that down to, how does that make a difference for you, Tim, and you, John, and the guys on the team? Because we've got to have a target to go for, but you break it down individually to the techs in your team and your crew?
Yeah. Well, yeah, for the technicians, we know. So it's a little bit different for the technicians than everybody else, because the technicians are on a full performance pay system. So I don't pay my guys by the hour, which is interesting because people go, oh, well, how does that work? They get a certain percentage of the job. It helps me control my labor expense. But quite honestly, because we price things right, and because our techs are properly trained and we don't have a lot of callbacks and things like that, we have technicians making over $50 an hour.
Yeah.
Because, and that's all time. So, that includes windshield time. Think about that one. So, you could go the cheap way of saying, oh, well, I'm just going to pay my technicians, $20-$25 an hour or whatever. But then you're going to get the B players. You're going to get the people that are like, and then you could say, well, I'm going to just pay a flat $40 an hour. Well, there's going to be no incentive to get the job done in a timely manner. And you're going to have to really be monitoring things like production rates and things like that.
Yeah.
So for our technicians, they've got their capacity calendar. And so we know that each truck, for example, has a $2,500 a day capacity. We send them out with $2,000 and then they upsell the rest. Or send them out with $2,200. Sometimes we send them out with $2,600, $2,700. We've got a couple guys that can do $3,000 in a day.
Yeah.
So we kind of know where they're at, and then they're responsible for hitting those. And then they get that percentage of the job. They don't get paid for doing their callbacks, and then we retain a couple of percents as a bonus. And then any broken items or lost items come out of that. So if it's non-wear and tear things. And so that also helps us, and customer damages. So for example, if they spill, a bunch of bleach down an asphalt driveway, we have to have it resealed. Well, guess what? That comes out of that bonus, because it's a bonus. So when you structure their pay correctly, that helps you with controllables, but it also, they start competing with each other on who can get the best, production rate. Like, oh, I made $53 an hour last week. Oh, you're sitting at 35. What a loser. They kind of like poke at each other. So they inspire each other that way. The other teams, we do have short-term contests that we run. So we've got a budget for that. And we say, okay, like for example, the sales team, what we do is, because we do level 10 meetings every Tuesday, and everybody has their KPIs, and we go through those KPIs every week. And when you do that, you can say, okay, what do we need to focus on? So for example, if our one call close KPI is starting to dip below our goal metric, then what we'll say is, hey, for if you get your one call close rate above 50%, then we're going to give you an extra X amount of dollars per closed business. So you can find little short-term goals and contests to inspire your team to move the needle in the way that it needs to be moved. But if you're just saying hit your sales goal, well, that's one thing. But what else? If that's the only thing you're measuring and providing incentive on, then you're going to be missing a lot of other things that need to be. That needle needs to move as well. But they have no incentive to move that needle, so you have to constantly update those things.
Yeah. So when you said your truck's got a $2,500 a day capacity, you book $2,000, guy goes out and they're responsible to make the rest on upsells. It's primarily power washing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the upsells what's the target generally? Not numbers, but what are they upselling? Is it?
Oh, it's roof washes a lot of times. So they'll go out to the house and they'll look at the roof and they'll say, oh, yeah, that needs to be done. Or it could be a driveway or something that the sales team, maybe it's something that the sales team even quoted, but they opted out of. But when the technician got there, they looked at it and they explained to the customer, because it's the technician, they don't feel like they're being sold at that point. If the technician says, hey, you see this white chalky stuff here? That's called efflorescence. And I can take care of that, make it look brand new, and then we could put a sealer on it to stop it. And that service is going to be X amount of dollars.
Yeah.
And I can give you a quick demo real quick of what it would look like.
Yeah.
And then they do that, and then they can upsell things like that. So it's really the technician that's on the ground looking that can point out things to the client and upsell those.
Do you ever have them say that you see that white stuff right there? That's called efflorescence. If you can spell it, I will clean it off for no charge.
That'd be a good one. Probably.
Yeah.
They'd Google that real quick.
Yeah. F that fluorescence. No, that's not how it's spelled. All right. All right. So, on the journey to seven figures, what are some of the key struggles that everybody's going to face?
It's going to be team. It's going to be your team, your systems and processes for sure. Because when you're kind of get started out, you have a good handle on all the clients. You've talked to them. You've probably sold the job, so you've got all the details. You are kind of the epicenter of your business, and you can handle that. And everybody's got a certain capacity. For some people, that's $300,000 a year. For other people, that's $3 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the industry. It also depends on the person and their tolerance and their life situation and things like that. So there's no like really set number on that. But the key things that happen in there are, making sure that you have the systems and processes in place so that when you have to start delegating, you know how to train. And here's the big thing that I had to learn is when you start a business, you have a certain skill set. Maybe it's just washing something. You've never even run a McDonald's before. Like you have no idea how to run anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. It's perfectly okay. But you have to learn those skills. And I think that's the hardest, I guess, obstacle I had to overcome was like, what other skills do I have to learn or hire out in order to grow the business? So you get to an inflection point. For me, I think it must have been about 1.3 or so that was like, I can't do this all on my own. So
Yeah.
I'm going to have to hire somebody. But the problem is in that zone, when you start hiring people, now your cash flow just goes because you're paying out salaries that you weren't paying out before. And so it's hard because your first office manager you hire, you're probably going to swing and miss.
Yeah.
Your first GM, my first GM, he was actually really good. He left. He was good. I got lucky with that one. My second one, and third one, she's great. And so you have swings and misses, and it's okay. You learn, and what's funny is all of those, even the ones that, like I said, the first guy, he was great. I failed him. The second guy, I failed that guy. The third person, I think I was just tired of failing people because I failed them because I didn't give them clear instructions. There wasn't systems and processes. There wasn't things that I executed correctly, and unfortunately, they're just left in the wake of my, mistakes. So really at the end of the day, it always came back to me.
Yeah.
And so I think that was the hardest part, was learning that I had to learn more things and then learn to delegate correctly, because delegation without instruction is abdication.
Yeah.
And you're basically just abdicating your responsibility. You're just, and I get it. It's out of frustration. I've been there. I was there. I think I was there probably earlier this afternoon. I was talking to somebody, and full disclosure, my biggest struggle is really digging into the details and the data and the numbers and all of those things. I know my numbers, but that's because I look at reports and things. But to actually go in there and to dig into the weeds, that's something I truly struggle with. And I was just in pure frustration. I was like, somebody just please solve this for me. And I was like, I just felt that. And as a business owner, I know a lot of us get in that situation where we just feel like we're just like, somebody needs to just, "Hey, please take this, help me." But we don't know how to ask for help, and we don't know how to hire help,
Yeah.
and we don't know how to train the people because we don't even know how to do it ourselves. So, you can hire a VA all day, but if you don't know what you're doing, your VA sure as crap isn't going to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to train them, then that's going to be difficult. And so, yeah, those are things that you have to just overcome. That's, for me, that was some giant obstacles I had to overcome on the path to, you know, to over seven figures. It's a slog sometimes.
Yeah. So I mean, you clearly, like, you didn't come pre-installed with the skill and the knowledge to run a business, because you had a job, and I don't know the origin story. If it was like you got a bid to power wash your driveway and somebody said this can be $800, and you're like, oh, I can do it myself. I'll just go to Home Depot and get a thing, and then you did it. You're like, hey, I could do this. There's extra money here. I don't know, but like, you start learning, and most people start technician first, then they handle the office, then they handle sales or whatever. But like, if you don't already have that leadership and those skills built in, where did you learn?
Luckily for me, I've led teams since I was 19 years old. So leadership is in my blood. I think that's why I've been successful. Because if it came down to anything else, my business skills or anything else, I would have failed a long time ago. But I think it's because I know how to inspire and recruit and retain, quality people, and cast a vision, and really, show people how good it can be, and then deliver on that for them.
Mhm.
I think that's been my ninja skill. So for me, that's the thing that came easy for me. The other stuff was difficult, but you learn by doing it. And that's how I learned. Like, my first management jobs, I was a terrible manager. I was the worst. I Man, I've got so many stories of me just screwing it up and not doing the right thing and thinking I'm doing the right thing. You try to be their friend, that doesn't work. You try to be a hard nose, that doesn't work. You try to micromanage, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you start realizing, okay, hang on, it's all about communication. And then you start learning how to communicate with people and how to connect with them and how to find out what they want and how to find win-win solutions and how to read somebody so that you know how to encourage them and how to motivate them and how to really talk to them, how to connect with them as a person rather than just an employee.
Hmm.
But you do that by going through the reps. It's kind of like if, and a little secret on what I'm going to share in my talk at the Huge is, there's this video of this kid. He's at the gym, and he's kind of a pudgy kid, and he gets on this machine and he does like 3 reps, and then you see him look down, and somebody's like video recording him from a distance, so this isn't staged, but he like lifts up his shirt and he looks at his fat stomach and he just just looks defeated. He did 3 reps. That's how
Yeah.
most business owners are. You do 3 reps and you think you should be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not how it is.
Yeah.
You've got to learn and get the reps, but more importantly, and I think this is absolutely huge, is having the right mentors or coaches or whatever you want to call them, that are helping you along the way, that are helping you shortcut your mistakes.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, you and I were in the same mastermind for a few years,
Mhm.
and that was, it is like, that's, God, it's like a cheat code in so many ways, because not only, one, you get inspiration, you get ideas, you get training and teaching, but like, to be with other people, even you're in the same industry, even if you're the same size company, it's like a challenge that I've faced. It's, if you get 10 people in the room, probably somebody in that room has already faced it, solved it, knows how to do it, and is good at it. And they'll just go, hey, stop struggling. Just do this. Like, this is how we fix that. And you're like, oh, and I don't know if most people are like this. The kind of, in the U.S., in the culture of the Protestant work ethic, there's so much emphasis placed on do it yourself. How hard can you work? And those are, like, work ethic is good, but at some point, growing a business, that work ethic and doing it all yourself becomes the bottleneck. You are the bottleneck. And you've got to grow beyond that with, like you said, with vision, leadership, to get to a point where you can bring out the best in other people and allow them to run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you want a job, you can have a job. And most people that, they start a business thinking that they're going to get out of the job, and then they just create another job for themselves. Instead of working 40 hours a week, they work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
I had a kettle corn business. That was actually my first foray into entrepreneurship. A couple years before I started my power washing business, I was at a festival and I saw this kettle corn guy, and I paid $10 for this giant bag of kettle corn, and I was like, I wonder what the cost of goods on this is. Turns out it's less than $1.
Yeah.
And I was like, hang on, this guy's got a line like a football field deep, and I was like, okay, hang on. So I started this kettle corn company, and it was great. I was making like $1,000 a weekend. Just doing popping kettle corn.
Yeah.
A couple hours, a few hours a weekend. And then I got tired, man. I was like every weekend, just out there. And I didn't want to hire an employee because I was like, they can't do it as good as I can. What are they going to show at my house? They're going to pull the trailer over. They're going to unload it. I can't trust anybody to do that. I'm going to have to be the one to do it. So I just continued on and just running myself into the ground, because I'm working a job, 5 days a week. And then I'm doing this on the weekends. So I'm just wrecking myself to the ground.
Yeah.
And then I just sold the business. And then later I realized, hang on, if I just hired an employee, I could have paid that person, $15 an hour, and I would have made, $20 an hour myself, or whatever it is, or I would have made a profit. I don't remember what the numbers were, but I had that epiphany, and I was like, maybe I could have trained somebody. Maybe I could have done it better. And then after I started my next company, I was like, after I power washed my first house, I was like, I do not want to be the one doing this. This is the worst. And so, I washed houses for a year before, saying, okay, I'm hiring a technician. They're going to be the one to do it. And I had helpers and things like that I had hired. But really, you have to learn those things if you want to have a business that creates the freedom that you want, or you have to be so good that you can say, hey, I'm shutting down these months. I don't want to do it. So, but I think most of us want to have a business that we want, people to work for us, and we want to, grow that. And so we can take the time off. We see all the people that own businesses and, flying around in their jets and doing these things. Like, I kind of want that. So you have to, fortunately and unfortunately, you have to have people to help you get that. And if you don't know how to manage people, they're not going to want to help you, because you're literally, as a business owner, you're the one, you're just like, I need to find helpers. I just need somebody to help me.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the right, incentive for somebody to come want to help you, and it's not always money,
Mm-hmm.
but they need to be able to survive. But if you can't draw those people in and show them, hey, here's where we're going, you're just going to struggle.
Yeah. Really. I mean, if you don't have a vision that's big enough to hold others, as well as a purpose for them to, and a culture to keep them, you just have a revolving door, and it's the opposite of freedom. It's just constant frustration and training and rehiring, and man, that's expensive. Remember, I was on a call with Dan Plata maybe 5 years ago, and we were just talking about the cost of hiring someone, and he broke it down. And I know it, you got to pay for your ads, you got to do this, you got to train, blah, blah, but I never really put numbers on it. And we just did the math together. It was like $4,700 to hire a technician. I'm like, what? I would way rather pay one of my existing technicians a $3,000 bonus to stay.
Yeah.
So we don't have to rehire, because then you're already way ahead. And I'm like, and that became a mission, was to solve for retention. And lo and behold, much to my, shouldn't have been surprised, it came down to culture. It wasn't about anything else. It was just culture. People want to be there. So So let me ask you this. So I've got my new shirt. These just came in yesterday. I was really excited. Fueled by Freedom shirt. Does it read frontwards or reverse?
It reads forwards. I can
Forward.
read
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Good. I don't want you to have to get, reverse mirror glasses to read it. But most people I've ever met that run a business, they got into it because they wanted a level of freedom. They wanted to, maybe it's just call their own shots, or they wanted to go like, I don't want to work 40 years and retire and have, downsize into a 1-bedroom condo with my dog. I want to live, and freedom is choices, and freedom is, you have options. And, but most people that started for freedom end up getting stuck along the way and struggle and for whatever. So you have, 8-9 years of building. You've had the ups and downs. You've got some things worked out now. So you live and work remotely from your own business, which is a great evidence that your business runs itself. What's the I know it was tough. I was, we've been friends during some of that. And
Yeah.
you're like, was it worth it?
Yeah, always. Yes. I mean,
And now
you have those,
yeah.
you have those days. And I mean, full transparency. I mean, and a couple hours before this, before the show, I'm dealing with like financial stuff. Like we bought $400 and some odd $1,000 worth of equipment in April of this year, expecting a booming year. We're not getting a booming year, at least where we're at. We're actually down. We were down $76,000 last month and over last year, which is crazy. It's crazy. It is what it is, and and that's hard to admit, because it's almost embarrassing. Because it's like, oh, he failed, and it's like, no, I didn't fail. It's just the way it is. That's the reality of the situation. My team didn't fail. My marketing company didn't fail. Nobody, nothing like that. It's just we just experienced a setback, and the setback isn't what matters. It's what you do with that setback. And so is it worth it? Yes, because I'm learning. I had a terrible acquisition in Seattle that it cost me so I lost so much money and time, and I'm still being sued and things like that, even though I exited the company. The banks want their money after I left, and it ended up folding, like 6 months, I think, after I left. That was tough and that was hard. So, but being able to look at that and go, okay, that happened. What can I learn from that? So I learned, how to do better due diligence. I learned how to respond to the red flags that I see in somebody's character that I'm buying a business from. I learned a lot. And it's funny because I think the most important thing that I learned was when I was having those conversations with the person, those red flags and everything was there. I was blinded by the dollar signs. I was blinded by the growth and the things like that, because you're dealing with an 8-figure company. You're thinking this thing's going to be awesome, and it's going to be great, and we worked out the perfect deal and things like that. Well, then you find out, no, it was a perfect deal because the guy was a scam artist and just had run the business into the ground and then wanted us to resurrect it because he knew. And that's why, because my background is in restructuring and things like that, so I can turn things around. I love turnarounds. It's my favorite. But they're hard. And so, it just sucked, and it sucked for a while, and it still sucks, but I wouldn't change it for the world, because you don't learn from comfort. You learn from the pain. You grow from the pain. You don't go to the gym and it freaking feels like a ticklish fest, You go to the gym and it sucks, man. I was doing leg day today. And I'm doing these squats, I'm doing these deadlifts, and I'm like, this freaking sucks, and I hate it, and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But you do it because you're growing because of the pain. There's a part of your brain, and I would butcher the name, and it doesn't matter what the name is because it's just a label. It's just a thing we say in English. But there's a part of your brain that is the seat of willpower. And they've measured brain scans in people like obese people and people that, just are not motivated. And that particular part of the brain is very small. But then they measure like athletes and entrepreneurs and people that have been through some stuff. And that part of the brain is actually bigger. And what they figured out through the studies was that part of the brain increases in size when you do something you don't want to do.
Wow.
And so when you force yourself to do something that you don't want to do, for example, dig into your QuickBooks or look at your marketing spend or design that flyer or put out those yard signs or whatever the thing is, and you find that excuse not to do it, that part of the brain stays the same. But if you force yourself to do it, then that's how you create willpower. That's the magic unlocking. It's just going through the pain.
Yeah. Embrace the suck or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It can be a challenge. So, well, listen, we're 5 weeks away from the huge convention, by the way, from today.
Yeah. Wow.
Now, starting to get excited. I've been excited for a long time. I started, talking about it every day. 120 days from the huge. So 84 days ago.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And I'm like, man, I've talked a lot. But now it's like, 5 weeks away. I'm starting to get excited. Can't wait to come back to Nashville. This is our last year in Nashville for a while.
That's what I hear.
Yeah, we've got a secret location locked in for next year.
Nice.
We're gonna have we've got a fun reveal. We've got a contest going in the background for some of our ticket sales affiliates and the people that sell the most tickets. They're going to be greeted on Tuesday the 19th. Taken to the private airport, board a private jet, fly to the new location, get a VIP tour and dinner or lunch or whatever, and do all their Instagram stuff, and then fly back private to Nashville in time for the party. I'm like, this is fun. So we
do you get to go on that jet?
No, I don't. I have to work.
Oh, man.
I was like, come on, I'll be a great host, tour guide. One guy, Eric Trice, Eric, he said, dude, I bet you're just going to take off and like circle Nashville for an hour and then land again. It's going to be in the same place. I'm like, that's funny.
That would be funny.
But it's not true.
Dalkey would not pay for a jet to circle Nashville for an hour.
Not to circle. Yeah. But
that's awesome.
Good. What day are you coming in?
I'll be there Wednesday. I'm going to get in Wednesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you. We've got, it's every year you've been so deeply involved in it in the past few years. It's like we got a great keynote speaker when we had Hamish Brewer and Kenny. And I'm like, how are we ever going to top that? And then sure enough, we find somebody, and then we have, almost like Dennis Miller.
No, Kyle Sheely.
Yeah. Sheely was a scream.
Yeah. Don Miller.
And then Donald Miller. And I was like, I don't know how we're going to top this. And then we end up, we met Brian Gottlieb through a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
And Marcus Sheridan. I'm like, well, all right, this is red hot. And I'm already thinking like next year, what are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. Like, how are you going to top that? So.
Jeffrey. No, I won't say the name.
You weren't going to say Jeffrey Epstein. What would you say? Okay. Well, he has been in the news lately.
He has.
Yeah. Oh, good. We'll aim for somebody else. Yeah, cool. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time, and it's been a minute since we've caught up too. So it's good to see you. Congrats on the move.
Thanks, man.
Down to Arkansas. And Derek McDuffie, good to see you, my man.
Hey, Derek.
Glad you popped in here. We're just wrapping it up. Oh, we've got like literally 1 minute before we go. Is anybody on right now that would like a ticket to the huge convention? I was going to give one away. I've got this silly trivia thing, but we don't need to do that. If you don't have a ticket to the huge convention and you want one, I would reward you right now, Derek. If you want to go, I have a ticket to give away. If you would like a ticket to the huge, just say, I want a ticket in the comments, and I will arrange to get it to you. And if you don't want a ticket to the huge convention, don't write, I want a ticket in the comments. How's that?
Sounds fair enough.
That's pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
So if anybody pops in, I'll see it and I'll make sure you get your ticket.
Yeah. It's the craziest ROI on here's three. Right, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But it's the craziest ROI that the total cost to go to the convention with hotels and everything like that and food, you're going to be sub $1,000.
Yeah.
I have made so much money off of the stuff I learned at the Huge. It's not even funny. I've been attending since 2017, 2018, I think 2018. And just year after year, learning the nuggets and just picking 3 things and then, running with those. And that's the kind of value that I hope to deliver to the folks that are coming to my talk, is make it worth it. Make that one class worth the cost of admission.
Yeah.
You won't get better education. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And I know there are lots and lots of people that fit in this category, and I hope that your room is full with people that are sick and tired of the chaos of trying to scramble and run a business on grit, hustle, and rubber bands, and like get the systems, get the vision, get control, and have a business that serves you, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And I know that's the heat that you're going to bring. So I'm looking forward to it. Cool.
Awesome, man.
It's good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you.
We'll see you in 5 weeks, Nashville, Tennessee.
Awesome,
All right,
man.
All right. Thanks, Jonathan. See you later.
Bye.